If the enemy continues its war, the battlefield will decide. Hezbollah. Watch. Israel's war on the occupied West Bank since October 7th attacks. Images show 40 Israeli military vehicles near UNIFIL headquarters in Lebanon. Hezbollah's defiance highlighted in deputy leader's speech. Israeli jets hit Hezbollah launchers used in attack on Haifa. Army. Senator Graham urges Israel-Saudi normalization before year ends. Unwarns Lebanon could face same spiral of doom as Gaza. Leaders of UK, France and Germany to hold talks on Middle East. If the enemy continues its war, the battlefield will decide. Hezbollah. The Lebanese armed group's deputy leader Naim Qassem says he supports attempts by Speaker of Parliament Nabih Berri, a Hezbollah ally, to secure a halt to fighting with Israel. It wasn't clear whether this signaled any change in stance after a year in which Hezbollah said it's fighting in support of Palestinians in war-battered Gaza and won't stop without a truce there. In any case, after the issue of a ceasefire takes shape, and once diplomacy can achieve it, all of the other details can be discussed and decisions can be taken, Qassem said. If the enemy Israel continues its war, then the battlefield will decide. His 30-minute televised address earlier came 11 days after the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, the most devastating blow Israel has dealt its foe in decades. Another senior Hezbollah figure, Hashem Safieddine, seen as a likely successor to Nasrallah, has not been heard from publicly since an Israeli airstrike late last week. Watch. Israel's war on the occupied West Bank since October 7th attacks. It isn't just Gaza where Palestinians have been under Israeli attack since October 7, 2023. Analysts say Israel is annexing the West Bank. Just last week, Israel conducted its largest airstrike on the West Bank in decades, killing at least 18 people in Tulkarem. Images show 40 Israeli military vehicles near UNIFIL headquarters in Lebanon. Satellite photographs show a significant Israeli army presence, including troops and vehicles, near the UN peacekeepers base in Marun al-Ras, southern Lebanon. Images show 40 military vehicles positioned in earthen fortifications around the UN mission's headquarters. The area has seen the construction of a road to facilitate movement as well as land being bulldozed near the UN base. UNIFIL troops raised alarm after the Israeli army deployed near the mission's post southeast of Marun al-Ras inside Lebanese territory. Israeli forces stationed themselves behind berms just meters away from the base of Irish peacekeepers. UNIFIL issued a statement saying it is unacceptable to compromise the safety of UN peacekeepers while they carry out their mandated duties from the UN Security Council. Hezbollah's defiance highlighted in deputy leader's speech. There are three main points to Naim Qassem's speech. Firstly, it was about defiance that Hezbollah still has its capabilities. He was very clear in saying that its command, control and administration structures were still in place, that all of the military leaders that had been killed were either replaced or their capabilities were being used in another way. He also said that Hezbollah was going to vote in a new secretary general. Then he talked about Palestine and said that it was solidarity with the Palestinians. That's why they joined the war on October 8 last year, and they continue to do so in support of the brothers of the Palestinian resistance. He also talked about Iran. He said that Iran was steadfast in its support for the resistance. He criticized the US role, saying if it wasn't for the Americans backing Israel, then Israel simply would crumble. But he did very clearly say that the fact that 60,000 Israelis cannot go back to their homes in the north is a victory for Hezbollah. Israeli jets hit Hezbollah launchers used in attack on Haifa. Army. Fighter jets have struck some of the launchers used by Hezbollah to fire dozens of rockets at the city of Haifa, according to a statement by the Israeli military. Israeli medics said one elderly woman was lightly injured in the attack. Israeli air forces also hit rocket and anti-tank weapon launchers and military buildings in the last few hours, the military statement added. Separately, the army said its jet struck a weapons depot and other buildings of Hezbollah overnight. adding that a school building in Haifa in southern Lebanon was also destroyed. U.S. Senator Graham urges Israel-Saudi normalization before year ends. Republican Lindsey Graham has called for Saudi Arabia and Israel to establish diplomatic ties by the end of the year, warning that the next US administration is unlikely to be able to secure enough votes to support the deal. The Biden administration is seeking to broker a normalization accord between the two countries that would include US security guarantees for the Gulf state, among other bilateral deals between Washington and Riyadh. We can get you a treaty through the Senate between the United States and Saudi Arabia, a defense agreement like you have in Japan and Australia, if you do it on President Biden's watch. Graham, who is seen as close to Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, told reporters in the West Jerusalem, "The next president will have a very difficult time getting 67 votes," he said in reference to the two-thirds majority needed in the US Senate for approving a defense treaty. Democratic President Joe Biden's term will end on January 20, 2025. Unwarns Lebanon could face same spiral of doom as Gaza. Unhumanitarian officials have called for urgent action to stop the escalating conflict in Lebanon from spiraling into a similar scene of devastation as seen in Gaza. "We need to do everything we can to stop that from happening," said Matthew Hollingworth, Lebanon Country Director for the United Nations World Food Program. Unwarns Lebanon could face same spiral of doom as Gaza. Unhumanitarian officials have called for urgent action to stop the escalating conflict in Lebanon from spiraling into a similar scene of devastation as seen in Gaza. "We need to do everything we can to stop that from happening," said Matthew Hollingworth, Lebanon Country Director for the United Nations World Food Program. Israel's bombardment of Lebanon has killed more than 1,100 people and displaced upwards of 1 million in less than 2 weeks. James Elder, the spokesperson for the UN Children's Agency UNICEF, warned that the commonalities are unfortunately absolutely there to be seen, whether it is displacement on the ground, impact upon children, or language being used to soften the realities on the ground. "We are seeing the same patterns that we saw in Gaza," Jeremy Lawrence of the UN Rights Office added. "The devastation is beyond belief for all people in Lebanon as it is in Gaza. We can't let this happen again." Leaders of US, UK, France and Germany to hold talks on Middle East. The leaders will meet in Berlin on Saturday on the latest developments in the Middle East and the war in Ukraine, according to British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's spokesperson. The Prime Minister will travel to a meeting of the Quad in Berlin on Saturday, the spokesperson told reporters, referring to the Quad grouping of Britain, the United States, France, and Germany.